all for being here for the end of September, our last group meetup for the month of September. I am super excited about our guest. She is a friend, she is a woman of God, she is a visionary. I met her, maybe like 2 years ago, maybe even longer at an event, and she was actually a speaker. I was in the audience. Our spirits just immediately connected and we exchanged numbers. We went on a lunch date and then just from just the connection, I invited her to the Blossom Brunch this year. So she was one of our speakers at the Blossom Brunch. She sat on the financial panel and she blew the waters out of it. It's just amazing. I want to read her bio and then I'm going to turn it over to her. So she is the epitome of a go getter. Her combination of energy, motivation, and strategic thinking has made her an impact of driving growth and profitability seems easy. She has helped numerous organizations achieve their goals and overcome their challenges. Now, she's excited to leverage her expertise in management, strategic planning, and financial analysis to help individuals and businesses protect their assets and achieve peace of mind through insurance solutions and living trust. With deep understanding and complexities of business operations and the importance of mitigating risk, she is committed to providing personal guidance and tailored insurance solutions to meet the unique needs of her clients. And you guys, she has done something amazing for me. As you all know, my baby girl Amaya is in college, and I want her to share a little bit about. She reached out to me and asked me if I, and I don't want to get all the terms wrong, but she was like, "Do you have a power of attorney for Amaya? Is that right? Is that correct?" Okay. And I was like, "No, I thought that that was for like elderly people when people are like dying." And she's like, "No." And within days, she whipped something up for me, and I am forever grateful. So, you guys, let's give her a virtual round of applause as she takes the stage. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. And first and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight because we are all, whether we're moms, we all have busy schedules and just being intentional about what you want poured into your lives, right? I do want to give thank you to Tamika because we did meet, I want to say it was in 2020 during the pandemic. And just, the synergy, I believe she's a powerful, powerful individual that is anointed and that you are very blessed to have her as your coach, leading you and guiding you, especially from a place of, faith. So I want to start tonight talking to you a little bit. You've heard about my accolades, but really what matters to me is being able to pour into you what you need to hear tonight. So just a show of hands, are we all moms here in the room? Okay. Do any one of you owns a business? How about a house? You own your own homes? Okay. So here we are. We're talking about the value that I often talk about when it comes to finances and being able to hold a budget together and so forth. The realities of today. We need homes that have multiple streams of income, right? So I am a an agency owner. I do actually offer services in the areas of retirement planning, life insurance, but one of the things that I was noticing is as I was talking to people left and right, and these are families that, family owner, they have owners of businesses just like you. They're heads of households just like you, and they didn't have something called a living trust. So I think some of us are out of state, but in the state of California, if you own any asset that has over $150,000 or more worth, that asset has to be under what is called a living trust, or else if something were to happen to you, guess what? The government takes it. Government seizes it. They go ahead and go and assess it, and sometimes you actually have to sell the home to actually get the home back for your children and those beneficiaries, right? So I'm having these conversations with people, and one story that I want to share is when I was in college, I went to school in Lynchburg, Virginia. Okay, so you were talking about North Carolina. I have some friends in North Carolina, and I'm getting ready to do a trip. The school had organized a trip to Africa, so I've actually already been to Senegal, West Africa, and I'm getting ready, and I'm not kidding you. It's like a week before the trip, and I look at my passport, it's expired. I was just like 20 years old, you know? And I'm like, "Mom, Dad, what am I gonna do? I don't have a passport that works." And the next thing you know, within 24 hours, my mom sent me over something called a power of attorney, because I'm 20, but I'm really so young in terms of being an adult that I didn't know how to navigate these things. And she had to use that power of attorney to request my birth certificate, to get all these documents expedited and get that passport in my hand. So I was very grateful for that opportunity. But as I started, I'm a mom of a 19-year-old, by the way. As I started, my journey in business ownership and so forth, I was noticing, that I have to do a lot of advocating for my son. He's now 19. He feels very empowered because as you've done the work, Latasha, when you talk about, shadow work, that child of yours is so beautiful to have a mom that's already doing those types of exercises with him. When my son was playing soccer, I actually would do visualizing, techniques and exercises with him. And I said, visualize that ball going into that net, right? And so as we are, pouring into us, as we are working in ourselves, we're able to be, I consider ourselves better parents than what our parents did for us, right? So here I am, navigating the world of having an adult child. He turned 18 last year, and I can't access his medical records. I can't, when it comes to any type of, bank records or anything like that, I can't access that anymore. I had to get a power of attorney over him. And I'm, wondering how many of my friends, how many of my colleagues and associates know that once your child goes off to college, if one thing is getting a passport renewed, but what if it was an actual medical emergency? you know so I am now able to talk about the power of that document, because that document is only utilized when you need it, right? So let's say Tasha, your son does go off to college, he goes out of state, but for whatever reason, he needs funds to go into his bank account. So now, using that power of attorney, you're able to go into the bank, even though you're not on his actual account. You're able to go into the bank and do any kind of transactions for him, right? You're able to sign any kind of, agreements for him. This power of attorney can be utilized not only for your adult children, but let's be honest, I have an aging dad. Many of you have aging parents. We don't want to talk about death, right? But death is a reality. I have a grandma. I shared this at Blossom Bunch. My grandma used to say, "I don't want to talk about death. What do you want me dead?" So we literally never had that tough conversation, right? But I hope today that you're able to, what you could do today by taking away some of these nuggets, is that these power of attorneys, you can actually have them over your parents too. As your parents are aging, as your parents are, maybe right now they're able to converse and have, um, advocate for themselves when it comes to their doctors, all the medications that they need. But there might be a day where they don't. The reality is that we do have dementia and Alzheimer's growing at a rampant rate. My grandma died in 2019 after my mom caring for her for 5 years. So my mom had a power of attorney over her in the event that she would ever need that. So these legal tools are actually very, very valuable for you. Folks that are out of state, I can always do my own research and be able to share these documents for you that are applicable to your particular state. I'm in California, just like Tamika is. California loves to protect their patients. So I have something called, not only powers of attorneys, but medical release forms, medical directives, and all of that. I actually use it in a trust package. So, for you business owners, I have a story out here. In Orange County, we had a prominent dentist. And again, when I say prominent dentist, we're talking about somebody who's been in business for many years, somebody who was really well known in the business community, and he passed away 2 years ago. And guess what? He didn't have this thing called a trust. So his business was taken over by probate by the courts. Long, long process to get it assessed to really understand the value of the business. There was no one who could manage the business. So for 2 years, the business basically, had to close shop because it was dead. There was nobody running it. And he didn't leave anything behind for his children because everything was put and poured into that business. So after growing such a successful practice, he still didn't have somebody on his corner to really, advocate for him and say, "Hey, you need to take the time. We're being intentional, right? We're pouring into us. We're taking the time tonight, to be here in this community. So I hope that tonight you're able to think about, let me sit down, let me think about, what's going to happen in the event that I'm not here, and what can we do for our children, for those businesses, for those aging parents. Something else that I want to talk to you guys about really briefly, because I could be here all night.
Can
In
I ask
20
a quick question
Yes,
real quick?
yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry. When you're talking about the medical release forms, it just made me think of something because I think here in California, and I don't know if this is the country, but when a child is, I want to say 14 or
Yes,
15,
yes.
you can't access their medical stuff without their permission. I don't know if you know this, Tosh, with Jonah
It's
being
actually
14.
13. I'm
Is
sorry, I
it
work in
13?
healthcare. Yeah, it's 13.
Wow. So with those, with the power of attorney work for that, because I know like one of my daughters, we have Kaiser, and couldn't reset her password, and so I called member services and they said I could not do it. She was 14 at the time. I couldn't do it without her permission, and I was like, "What? Like I pay the insurance. What are you talking about?" So would that work for
The
with those
power
medical.
Sorry to
Go ahead.
interrupt. No, no, sorry about that. The power of attorney that I have created for a lot of us women that want to make sure that we have our children protected does include, healthcare rights, so that you do have the opportunity to go into those, portals and access and request those passwords. A medication. Sometimes we're not in the room. When these children are being treated for something. I've known of parents that have children that have had to go through, mental health services, and are sometimes prescribed medication that, in the long run, it may not have been, that parent's particular choice. So you're able to actually use those powers of attorneys to advocate for your child as they grow into adulthood. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for that because I know we have our children are a little bit older, but I know a lot of the ladies on and welcome to Sagay. It's so good to see you. Our new CNA. She just passed her board CNA, so super proud of her. But I know a lot of the ladies have younger kids that are in the room, so I'm not sure if they were aware of that. Thank you to Tashika for mentioning that it's 13. I think in some
13.
even 12 that they say like the age of consent. So it's very important that we know a carrying, for your niece, or this information's really good for your grandma, that we have to have things in place. I think a lot of time as women of color, we don't know, and what we don't know we can't implement. So that's why I felt that this was so important for us to have this meeting tonight. So go ahead. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well,
Oh,
I wanna open the
question.
I'm sorry, do we have time for questions?
Yeah, of course. Allow this to flow. So I do see a couple of hands. So you can go ahead and unmute Tashika and then Akarian next.
I heard you say in certain states it's 12. So certain states, I can't remember exactly which ones, it's actually 11, to the point to where like it, so for my chart, I don't know if you all use that in California or not, but with my chart, it automatically changes. So when they turn 11, it'll automatically change the password. I want to say it actually sends them a link to the point to where they have to go in and set up a new username and password. And I just know because a lot of our patients will call in and be like, hey, my child just turned 11 or 13 and we can't access their information anymore. So then they have to go through the process. The child has to consent to the parent and say it's okay, but they still have to have a separate username and password from your actual account.
And Tashika, we're talking about accessing medical records when we might be able to access, our child to get on the phone and give
Hmm.
the authority. But what if there's an emergency? You
Mhm.
know? What if that child is intubated and unable to articulate, "Hey, mom and dad, I need to give you consent to look at my records to make medical decisions for us." You
Mhm.
know, we think about all these different scenarios, but we forget to really understand that, we're as parents, we're seeing our children, get older and wiser, and they still need us. They still need us in many shapes and forms. And um, I want to open up the opportunity. I think, Kieran, you had a question?
Carrying, yeah. And I don't wanna, over spiritualize everything, you guys, but I do feel like I it's important for me to say, I do feel like this is an attack on the family and an attack
It
on
is.
just, for them to allow an 11-year-old, like my 11-year-olds don't know how my son just came in here because I lock his phone. Like I don't allow him to get access to certain sites. So he just tried to walk in and ask me to for my phone so he can cuz he has to unlock it through my phone. And I'm like, "No, but imagine them having access to be able to get abortions, to have medical treatment, mental health treatment." It's just wild to me. So this is one of the reasons why we have this community and why it's so important that we heal as mothers and why we have this information as mothers, as sisters, as friends, so that we can tell other people. I'm telling you guys, it's contagious. It's a tsunami because there's so many women that are not in this room. But now that you guys
Yeah.
are getting this information, you can share it. Carrie, go ahead.
Okay, I had a couple questions. Um, and my first one was I kind of wanted to know what was the age for Georgia because I do have a little niece. I have a 3-year-old niece and I have a well, she's 8. I have an 8-year-old niece. And this is something I would love to be able to tell their mothers. Because we do live in a different age and I don't want it to be where something does happen to those two because they are very adventurous to say the least. And we're not able to access anything or be able to say what we can and can't do in that case. So, do you
I
know the
don't
age for
I
Georgia?
don't know the age for Georgia, but I'll be more than happy to get your number, through Tamika and get that answered for you because what I believe is more powerful than anything is information, right? And let's be honest, there's a lot of folks out there on the internet and they are giving you misinformation. So this is one I use this platform in a very responsible way because if I don't have the answer for you, I'm going to find it. But I don't know. I do know that Google is our best friend, our doctor, and everything, right? And sometimes we don't get the information that's accurate. So I'll find out for you, Kieran.
Okay, I had two more questions.
Sure.
Um, so when it comes to aspect of a power of attorney for a child, does the parent have to request that? Or how do you go about actually requesting for the power of attorney for a child? Because see, I'm over involved auntie, and I would probably be the one asking for it. So I just want to know if I need to just tell her, yeah, you need to do this, or make my grandma go do it. I just didn't know how that would go. Or can multiple people have power of attorney? Like,
So
can
yes, I want to answer that question because that's actually a great question, Kirian, because what it is the child is actually appointing you as power of attorney. So have I seen power of attorneys where there's two people jointly acting? Yes. Do I recommend it? No. Because that if you say, you Karen, you want her mom, your sister, and yourself to be on there, you would have to actually be in the same room, accessing the same documents at the same time, and sometimes that's not very practical. So what I often do in these power of attorneys is I say, hey, we're going to basically appoint a Kyrian as the number one power of attorney, and then we have a successor, which would be your sister. We could even name a third person, which could be the child's father or another, auntie or uncle, you know. But I think it's very important to know that these legal tools, you can craft them in a particular way based on your circumstances. So I love the fact that you are, a very caring auntie, because it takes a lot of us to raise these babies, you know and you're here having this opportunity to get some of your questions answered, and hopefully you can share it with multiple individuals, not just your sister and your family.
Okay. And my last question.
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago, I was trying to get into the whole life insurance aspect and actually doing it for myself, and helping other people understand it. But my brain has drawn a blank because I don't remember much, but I do remember me trying to get an IUL for myself. Um, but I have medical issues, so the cost of it was very high, and companies granting me one was very hard. What is the? Because I can't remember, is there a certain age, like, where you can get an IUL, or I can get it at any age?
You
Because 'Cause I'm
you can
trying to
actually
set myself
You can
my needs
actually
up.
get it at any age.
Okay.
I've even insured babies, Um, there is a cap, I believe it's 80, 89 years old for an IUL. So I am insuring older individuals. When it comes to these health issues, I understand this is very, very, you know, um predominant in our communities, right? And I think it's really important that we sit down and really kind of assess your situation and assess what your needs are. Because instead of going into a life insurance policy, if your goal, and this is just, I'm throwing this out, but if your goal is to be able to have monies in there in case of an emergency or in case of, retirement, we could put monies towards, an annuity that would not require all the blood work and all the different screenings. So, Kirian, again, Tamika, if you would allow me to have her contact information after the call, let's do a one-on-one so we can go over, because I actually am a broker, so I do represent over 400 different carriers. So just because one said no, that doesn't mean you wouldn't qualify for another one.
Yes, actually, ladies, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put her information in the hub so then you guys can book an appointment with her directly. So you can do those one-on-ones. There was another question in the chat, and it was a similar question that I had. I've never heard of a IUL. So if you can explain what that is. And then also I had a question off of what Akirian said about the power of attorney. What if it is like a custody issue or things like that? Do both parents have to be in agreement for the power of attorney to be put in place?
So I am divorced, and I do understand the delicate situation of having great co-parenting situations, and sometimes they're not that great. And it I always say this: in the event of an estranged father, and you don't know when that the father would ultimately have rights in the event that you were not there, but it's always best to have a document, because you never know if that individual will even exercise their right. Those estranged fathers may not even exercise their right as a parent. So if there is a healthy, co-parenting situation, where you've shared my information with them and you're talking about this, and you decide that you could have alternates. So it could be, mom can have, as we say it, as first right, to go ahead and advocate for the child, and then as a secondary power of attorney, we can appoint the dad. So I believe there was a second question, which is the IUL question.
Yes.
Um, these are very I wanna tell you that there are different levels to insurances, right? You have your term, policies that are very affordable, that, you can have a 10-year policy, 20-year policy, 30-year policy. And then you have those policies that are return of premium, meaning all those monthly payments. If something were to happen and you decide, hey, Janine, I've experienced a job loss, I want my money back, we can get your money back. And then there's the Cadillac of all policies, and that's the IUL. The beauty of the IUL is you're putting into these policies like a savings account. It will cover beneficiaries in the event of a death, right? But it will also cover if there's any critical injuries, if there's any chronic illnesses, any unforeseen, situation medically, you would because you are pouring into a policy that is growing cash value at the same time death benefit. So let's just for the sake of an example, you have $100,000 policy and you're spending $100 a month, it's earning as you go, as years go by, and I can again sit with you individually. It's earning cash value. So one thing that I do with my nephew and my son is I actually gift them a policy because as they age and they want, to pull maybe $20,000 from the policy, and use it to buy a car, use it to put a down payment on a home, on other large purchases. Guess what? They're now they've accumulated a certain amount of cash value where they're able to pull that money tax free, interest free, and these are beautiful tools. But again, we can sit down and really look at the numbers because a lot of families are looking at the longer term investment when it comes to retirement planning and making sure that, if they do get ill, if they do need to pull money from these policies for any kind of, retirement purpose, that they're able to do that. So it all depends on your particular financial goals. Those are very important.
Awesome. I'm not sure if there's any other questions. I don't see any in the chat, but if you want to just kind of, was there another, Akarian got all the questions.
I love it. I love it. The
I
wheels are
have one
spinning. I
more
love it.
too, but I'm gonna let her.
Go
Okay,
for it.
let's do Tasha because she hasn't had one, and then Tashika, and then Akarian. We'll go that order.
I want to know what's the difference between whole life and term life. Like, what do you recommend?
So
Or is it
term, it expires. It's an affordable policy, but there is an expiration. Remember I mentioned 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years?
mm,
Whereas a whole life policy, there's no expiration. My goal is for you to have a policy. My goal is for us to create generational wealth. My goal is for us to stop using GoFundMe. Can I be very honest with you? GoFundMe is not a solution. That is not the solution. We should be able to sit down with someone like myself and say we're going to provide for our families so that our families don't have to raise funds on their own. Now, right now, Latasha, you may be able to say to me, Janina, all I can do is $40 a month. So I can sit with you, I can show you what the options are. 2 years from now, a year from now, you could be in a whole different, income bracket. You can be, telling me, Janina, now I can afford the Cadillac of all Cadillac. And we can roll over that policy, depending on the timeline, we can roll over that policy into a permanent policy. But something is better than nothing, I always say.
you answered my other question. You can roll it over because I didn't know like if you would just lose it, after you've paid all that money. And the ones that the term when it expires, once it expires, what happens to all the money you paid into it? Is it just gone?
Gone. So the goal is let's get you into a policy that's affordable for you. Because my goal is not just to sell you a policy and then 2 months from now for you to tell me, hey, Janine, I can't afford it. I just did a post. I read this statistic and I hated it. In 2020, 20 million women lost their life insurance policies because of job loss. So my thought is, where is the insurance agent? Why weren't we having that conversation when that job loss hit? Let's have the conversation and say, okay, let me roll over this policy into something that's affordable for you now. And then we can go on and move into a more permanent policy. So Tasha, what I'm seeing is, again, it depends on your circumstances. You could actually start off with a term policy. In 2 years, we can have a different conversation and say, now let's look at other policies that are permanent. But in the event that something were to happen to you within those 2 years, you're covered. And for me, that's the gift you're giving your family.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Tashika, go ahead, and then Akarian, and then you guys, we're getting close to wrapping up. This was so good. We got to have her back.
I know we were talking about having a power of attorney for younger kids, like 13 and stuff like that. For them to be a power of attorney over me, is there an age limit?
So, for you, for example, if I understand the question correctly, I would not put your minor child to have power of attorney over you. It would
Okay.
have to be an adult. Even if your
Okay.
child is a very mature minor, I would
Mhm.
not make that recommendation. Is it possible? Yes, but you're creating a lot of obstacles by doing that because again, as a minor, they can't access certain, policies. They can't access certain bank accounts. The power of attorney would be very limited just because of their age. So my recommendation is, and again, ladies, we're talking about documents that they're fluid. What I mean by that is today, based on your circumstances today, Tashika, you can name your best friend. Your best friend will have power of attorney for you in the event of an emergency. If your child in the next 2-3 years turns 18 and you're like, you know what, I want to change my agent, they call it an agent, the person that you appoint the attorney over, and you can call me and say, Janine, I want to modify my power of attorney. Can you write me a new one? And so we basically revoke and terminate the old one, and we create a new one where we name your adult child as someone who has agency and power over you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, go ahead, Akarian.
Okay. I wanted to ask in the aspect of the two parents because I know in the state of Georgia I've heard many and I've heard this from my guy friends who have kids that they needed to get themselves legitimized to be considered the child's father. In the case that the father is not legitimized, will that come into play with them trying to get power of attorney for the child? Or does that not really matter as long as they can
So
sign the
let
birth kid?
if and that happens here in California too, Carrie, where we have pregnancies out of wedlock, we have estranged fathers, they're not part of the child's life and they weren't the it all starts also in the hospital here in California when you are giving birth. You're given all sorts of documentation. And there's actually a stipulation where if the mother wants to identify the father, she is able to stipulate at that point who the father is based on just her words, right? It's basically her words against him. So here in California, if that situation were to happen where the father doesn't agree with that and wants to challenge it, then you would have to go into court and do the whole DNA testing to be able to identify legally if he is the father and challenge that stipulation, right? So again, if there's a stipulation and if he agrees, then great. There's no need for more documentation or going into court. Moving over into this area called the power of attorney. while the child is a minor child, and let's say that they're still not of age at what we talked about 11, 12, 13 years old, um, we don't need these documents, right? But as they're getting a little older, as we're needing to advocate for them in these, healthcare circles, then you would just need to have that conversation because the power of attorneys can always be challenged when there's no agreements between the parents. I hope I answered the question and didn't make it a little more complicated because it does get to be legally complicated.
And in my experience, just when I was going through my divorce with my children's father, we both had to go get like custody. So even though I knew like they're mine, they came from me, I still had to have custody, and he had to have, which I never knew that. I never knew that you had to have custody of your children.
So I have worked with many family law attorneys, and that's something we didn't talk about tonight, but that could be our next topic when it comes to custody and divorce. I myself went through a divorce. You can have a joint custody, but custody is very important when it comes to these situations because guess what, ladies? If the father again, if the father is a participating father and there is a divorce or a breakup of a relationship, they have educational rights. So Tamika, this is a whole nother topic we need to come back and talk about. Okay, because if your child is undiagnosed and you're going through the motions of diagnosing them for autism, ADHD, you name it, and that father doesn't agree with what you're doing, they can challenge it because they have educational rights.
Yep. And that's without any, yeah, yeah. I working in the school system, I see that over and over. Even if a child wants mental health services and the one of the parents disagree,
They
you
can.
can't proceed.
Yeah. So this would be a great
Tasha,
topic to have.
absolutely. There's so many layers to what you're teaching. I'm like, my goodness. Tasha, do you have another question? And then Sige, I know that you're with your daughter, but if you wanted to put something in the chat or if you wanted to unmute, you're welcome to as well.
I just wanted to know for the for the power of attorney for the youth, my son's 14. So how do I get that? Are you a person that sets that up?
Yes.
And does it cost?
The cost is $50. So we have a conversation. You can share with me if you want other people involved, like we talked about. If there's maybe there's a father involved, or maybe there's another auntie that you want to name in there in the event that you would want to go ahead and do that. I'm very accessible. I think Tamika will share with you my contact information, and I'd love to have a conversation with you regarding that because I don't see a reason, Tasha, why you shouldn't have it you know? And
I
Akira and
want
I
it.
also yes, yes.
Especially, with your son, God forbid, cancel, clear, delete, we're not going to speak anything, but with him being an athlete and playing sports, anything can happen, where they have concussions or and so these are things we think like, oh, well, he's a minor. Unfortunately, that's not how the law works anymore. The law doesn't say, oh, because he's a minor, he's your child, you can access these things. These are things that we have to put in place. Tashika, did you have another question? And then Janina, I want you to just do kind of a wrap up of everything that we talked about, and then we'll let you go for the night. Was there another
I
question?
actually had custody stuff because I am going through that with my daughter, but I know you said that we're going to talk about that at a later time. So yeah.
And what I
Tashika,
want you guys to do, I'm sorry, what I want you guys to do when I post because I'll definitely put everything in the hub. I'll leave the comment section open. I want you guys just go in there and leave any topics that you guys want us to discuss that we didn't have time enough to discuss tonight, and then we can definitely have her back to discuss some of those topics of custody because I know I want to learn. I didn't see you raise your hand, Tashika, when she said who's a business owner, and I'm gonna get you because you are, just because it's not active right now. But, I wanna know about how to access,
Oh.
financial wealth from your, life insurance. A lot of people don't know that this is a huge play. This is how the rich keep staying rich. So, that's something I'm very interested in.
And I thank you, Tamika, because what you're doing is you're changing the conversation, you're changing the narrative. There'll be other speakers that you'll bring over to the community. But imagine it's like a tool belt, ladies. Your tool belt no longer has just a hammer. You're bringing in other tools in your tool belt. In the event that you have a legal problem or a financial problem, you can say, "Hey, I know somebody who can help me." And Tashika, yes, we're going to bring out, Tamika and I will arrange something for me to come back and speak to you about custody and so forth. But I want to tell you, sometimes we're dealing with a problem today. So please utilize my contact information. I'm a texter, so if you want to just do a quick little text and say, Janina, I need to see you, I need to speak to you, I'd be more than happy to consult. Ladies, I thank you. And I don't want to get emotional, but I can easily get emotional. Um, because I've been a single mom for a long time, 14 years. I wish I would have known what you're learning tonight many years ago. What you're doing is very, very important by spending time in this community, by using, and again, these are actionable steps. Tasha, you're going to talk to me, right? We're going to have that power of attorney set up, right? We're creating actionable steps that you can take away with tonight so that I can go ahead and help you so that you can also, lead other people in your community and talk to them about this because we have a mighty father that handles these battles for us, but he's equipping us, right? He's equipping us with information, with tools. And we all know that the power of prayer is very important. So I just want to leave it back to you, Tamika, because you've been a prayer warrior. And I pray a blessing over each and every one of the women that are here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, you guys. Let's show her some love in the chat. Please just show her some love for showing up and giving us some valuable information. This is her business, you guys. So when I leave her information, because I know that there's ways to generate more income, like you said, Akirian, doing insurance. So I'm sure what I want you guys to do, I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about how we can get all of this information, but we have to do something. Like we have to be like we have to put one foot in front of the other. So I'm gonna put her information out there. We're gonna have her back in the community, but I don't want us just to use her in this sense. I want you guys to book those calls. Book those calls with her. Create those $50. That is nothing for the price of your child's future and well-being. Figure out, Akirian, how you can get back into this. May be the answer to your prayer when you're talking about leaving your job. This may be that answer for you to go on and to, do insurance. Tajay, I know you didn't have an opportunity to share, but I know your situation. I know the things me and you have had many intimate conversations about your kids and different things. Please book a call with her. Don't look at the dollar amount, you guys. Look at what this is going to do for your children and for yourself in the long run. So, I just thank you guys. I thank you for showing up. I thank you for showing out. The next time that we have her or any other guests in the community, remember that you get a free guest pass. You get a free guest pass. So make sure you invite folks over so they can hear this information as well. The more people that know this knowledge and this information, the better our world becomes. I'm not one that looks at the world and says, oh my God, it's a mess. Now, I know we got some crazy stuff going on right now. But while we're living, while we're here on this planet, let's make the best of it. Let's do what we need to do so we can do what we want to do. I love you, ladies, so, so very much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. And we can't wait to have you in the community again. Until next time, ladies, bye bye.